Generally speaking, we think that attack speed as it is one of the bigger problems with Melee and the type of gameplay it encourages. It doesn't let animations shine. It has little or no strategic use because the speed you're going at is just, one motion encouragement. So for this reason, attack speed is one of the things that we've taken the biggest look at, and we've done it by just looking at the Berserker mod.
Well, I guess you can't spell delusion without DE, huh? Swazdula, you cream butter muffins. I don't know what that actually is, but how the hell are you? So let's talk about DE's release on what they plan to do to fix the divide between melee weapons and guns. So if you don't know what that is and you've never heard of this, then welcome back from the moon. Also, if you haven't watched the video, let me quickly explain. So when you go into super high levels, and we're talking into the thousands of levels up into high level Warframe content, right? You get to a point where your guns are basically completely useless. You use all of your ammo on full automatic headshots and still nothing is dying. And then with melee, you just still seem to reap havoc and kill everything. So that's where the divide comes from. The higher you go into higher levels, the less likely it is for you, or actually even the less possible it becomes for you to use any guns, really. So you start to rely only on melee weapons. Now, I understand that DE would want to change that. That does kind of suck. That isn't a really good game design, and it also just kind of encourages people to only use melee when we have a plethora of guns that we could also use. So it's a good idea that DE wants to fix this to begin with. Okay, cool. Now, in the players' minds, us, the consumers, the ones that actually consume this game, we think that DE should probably just buff guns. No, not the stats, but perhaps give guns mods that are somehow more relevant than the shitty ones that they have right now. Mods that have similar effects like a blood rush, or a condition overload, or a covert lethality like we used to have, where under certain conditions you could one-shot enemies. Well, how about lethal covert lethality for sniper rifles, for example, where if you hit him in the head, it'll be a guaranteed one-shot, for example. These kinds of ideas. So give weapons some kind of mods that will help the weapons get to the same level of melee. So that's what the players kind of think in their minds how to change this gap. DE, not so much. No. DE rather goes ahead and just nerfs some of the melee mods that get melee to where they are, and then provide us with shitty weapon mods that are supposed to fix anything. Now, the idea was, keep in mind, this is important for context, the idea on DE's side was to encourage players to use guns as well in higher levels. Only in higher levels, specifically Steel Path. That's what's been mentioned many, many times now, right? That's the goal. Make players want, or at least be allowed, to use guns at high levels as much as they use melee, okay? That was the goal. Now, my prediction for this whole thing was going to be the following. We've known this for weeks, and my prediction was DE will say that they're only going to nerf the melee a little tiny bit, which they did, but therefore they're going to massively buff all the weapons. That's what they said. My prediction, however, was they're going to nerf the melee a little bit more than what they claim they would, which is exactly what happened, and then they'll give us some really, really bad, crappy band-aid mods for guns that are ultimately still not going to do anything, and the final result of all of this mess will be that melee will still reign supreme and weapons will still, well, basically suck. And it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. So what DE is doing now is they're nerfing Blood Rush, they're nerfing Condition Overload, and they're nerfing Berserker. Now what was said is that Blood Rush isn't so bad. Blood Rush is going to be reduced from 60 to 40% effectiveness, and it's not going to trigger off of crits anymore, which is good because anything that gets triggered off of crits is basically guaranteed to be triggered forever, which for the effect is great, but strategic-wise, it's not that great. And I'll get to the word strategy in a moment too, probably. So that's not too bad. We'll still be able to red crit with many of our weapons, and even for those of you who understand how damage works, this is something I've been advocating for a very long time. Red crits don't actually mean shit. You don't need red crits to kill everything in the game. You don't need red crits to completely demolish high-end enemies like level cap or whatever. You don't need red crits. They're just a fancy colored number, okay? So Blood Rush getting a little bit nerfed isn't too bad. That's not too bad. Condition Overload, however, is getting a pretty heavy hit. It's going from 120% extra damage to, what was it, 80? Yeah, it was 80. That's not a little bit. You see, DE sits back and looks you straight in the face and says, we're only going to touch these mods a little bit. Going from 120 to 80 isn't a little bit, okay? I mean, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. Right? Now, that sounds like a huge chunk, and yes, it is. It is a massive nerf to Condition Overload. However, it's probably not going to do much anyways. We'll have to wait and see until we can actually test it, but I'm pretty sure that Condition Overload will still buff the enemies, buff the weapons so much that you'll still totally easily kill everything in the game, okay? But still, it kind of bothers me that DE emphasizes we're just going to touch it a little bit, and then they actually don't, which is exactly what I predicted, but whatever. No need to kick a dead horse. The next one is Berserker. Now, Berserker isn't getting much of a change, at least it doesn't appear as such, because Berserker is going from stacking 25% 3 times, all the way up to a total of 75%, to stacking 35 twice. So overall, you'll have a 5% less effective or slower, 5% slower possibility with Berserker. And that's not a big deal. That's almost nothing, right? But Berserker will also no longer stack with Fury. So you can't slap Fury and Berserker on there. And honestly, although this wasn't said, I would not be surprised if Berserker or Fury would also no longer stack with certain speed buffing arcanes. No, I'm just throwing that out there. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. The reasoning behind all of this is yet again, oh, the poor animations. You can't appreciate the animations from Melee when you go to these absurd levels of speed, blah, 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 blah. With all due respect, shut up. Nobody wants to see those fucking hideous animations, okay? Warframe, last time I checked, was a horde shooter. We kill hordes of enemies. It's not Sekiro, it's not Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, it's none of those kinds of games. But yet, DE insists on developing in a direction that forces players to pretend they are playing Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, or Sekiro, or Dark Souls, or anything like that. DE, why is it so difficult for you guys to understand that we are dealing with hordes? It is a horde killer power fantasy game. It is not Sekiro. There is no strategic value anywhere at all. It just doesn't make any sense. They're forcing players to use guns more than Melee by making Melee a little bit more shit. Let's put it that way, right? And that doesn't make any sense. DE's thinking in this situation is kind of like they create chess, right? They create chess, and then they don't like that players are making very smart plays with all the chess figures and doing all these different moves and stuff, right? Using the bishop properly, using this and that, all these things properly within the realm of the rules that they themselves provided. So their fix for it is nerfing chess down to the point that it forces players to play chess as checkers. And then players are like, hey man, this isn't chess anymore, this is checkers now. And D's like, no, that's not true. We encourage the chess play. We just think, the bishop is a little overpowered, so don't use it like that anymore. You know what I mean? It's just some kind of very delusional divide between what players actually want and need, what game Warframe as a game design actually is, and what DE actually wants. That is the biggest game design. That is the biggest divide in Warframe to date. DE made a game that is a thing. Players are playing the game as that thing. DE doesn't like the way players are playing that very thing, so they're trying to force players into playing it differently. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me, okay? I don't understand where they're trying to go anymore. But Furthermore, let's get away from the melee and talk about the guns and what they actually did. So they introduced some shitty arcanes. And they also introduced these new so-called galvanized mods. Okay. So just let me make this very clear. The fact that these galvanized mods and new arcanes exist in the first place, also with the stats that they have, isn't a bad thing per se. But the thing that bothers me about these is that most of them are, in order to get the full benefit from them, are based on kills. Okay? So you have to kill an enemy to trigger them. Any mod in Warframe that is triggered only upon kill is, right from the get-go, bad. Not bad in terms of what buff you get for it, but they're bad practically. They're strategically bad. They're not a strategically valuable action or usable item. You know what I mean? I'll explain. I'll show you some footage right here where I'm using some unmodded weapon versus some super low enemy and probably some mod equipped that already triggers upon kill. As you can see, you shoot them 1 time or 2 times or whatever and they're immediately dead and you immediately get the benefit from it. That works really well. Awesome. Sounds like a great idea, right? Well, if you use that same weapon though, also still unmodded except for the triggering mod, right, against super high level enemies, which in my case is going to be 175 because I can't spawn anything higher, and this simulates what it looks like when you're using a gun against level 5,000 enemies or 6,000 enemies, a fully modded with a riven gun against level 5,000 enemies. We can't simulate that right now, but we can make it kind of close. We can kind of illustrate the issue. As you can see now, the struggle is real. By the time I kill something to reap that benefit, to begin with, I will run out of ammo. And this is why upon kills or on kill perks in game are kind of shitty. They have no strategical value in endgame to begin with, right? They just don't. Aside from that, these mods and this whole change and everything, according to DE, which they have said many, many times now, is for steel path intentions specifically. Who cares about steel path really, though? Why do we have to farm these very mods at steel path? Why do we have to play Steel Path to gain rewards that are only going to benefit us to do Steel Path better? It's another flawed game design, just like Eidolons, where you kill Eidolons in order to get all the shit you need to get the arcanes and get the amps and stuff like that, that ultimately pretty much only benefit you killing Eidolons better. I don't understand why DE is making these strange decisions. My prediction for these mods are they're going to be a time sink and a resource sink, obviously, because there are, 6 of them? 9 of them? However many. You're going to have to invest time to farm them, then you're going to have to invest time and resources to max them, and then you're going to have to invest more time and more resources to reforma all of your fucking weapons just to fit these mods on here. And ultimately, when all of that smoke settles, ultimately the result will be the same as we are today. Melee will still be 100 million times better than guns. Still, no one will use guns. And to get back to that little word, they have no strategical value. Warframe wants us to use strategy in a game that doesn't provide any game design that allows for any proper strategy. I mean, come on, you can kill 50 enemies with the swoop of a weapon or with one single grenade. There's no strategy involved there, okay? Again, it's not Sekiro, Dark Souls, or Splinter Cell, or Sniper Elite, or Sniper Contracts, or whatever. We don't have to stealth our way up to a tower to snipe Vor in the head from a mile away. That's just not Warframe, okay? Would be cool to have such elements, but we don't. Okay, we have exterminate and survivals and disruptions, which are all basically spam E or empty clip, kill everything, job well done, repeat. Okay. What irks me a little bit about this whole thing talking about strategy and blah 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 is it further proves even more that DE doesn't know what game they're making. They don't know their own game. right? And they also for sure do not know what players want or what the game as a product needs in order to thrive on the market. They just don't understand it, okay? I'm not saying that I'm an expert, but I'm a consumer and I know what I'd like to see in Warframe to make me want to play it for more. And I've known this for many, many years now. DE does things that does the opposite, however, okay? So no strategic value. If I only have to use melee. You know what is a strategy that players come up with? Using the Kuva Nukor, or, by the way, Atamos, slap viral on it and a lot of status chance, use it to load enemies up with viral and get those 10 viral stacks, and then beat the shit out of them with melee to kill them most effectively. That's a strategy. Guess what DE nerfed though? That exact strategy, because the Kuva Nukor is no longer going to chain among as many enemies as it does, which makes it less effective. Now, I think we can get around that fairly easily, but still, it just goes to show that DE really doesn't understand what they're saying themselves. They contradict themselves so many times, and I'm not even dissing them at this point. I really don't mean to diss them or make them look like bad people or whatever, no. But Digital Extremes as a company is a little delusional. They don't know what game they've made. They don't know what the players want or need. They don't know what the game needs for maximum market value. They seem to have this fantasy in their heads of what they would like Warframe to be, and it's everything except what Warframe already is. They want Warframe to be played like Spec Ops The Line. They want Warframe to be played like the Division 2 with using cover and shit like that. They want melee to be used like in Sekiro, where you do it strategically, where you have to plan out all of your swoops. And literally nothing, not one single aspect of the game encourages or even allows that type of gameplay, which is why these kinds of mods are ludicrous to me, and why these kinds of changes are ludicrous to me. So DE will now just cause us to get distracted because we have new shit to farm, and we're going to go out and farm those, or we're going to dump all of our resources into it and maximize everything and respec everything, and in a couple of weeks players will come to realize, oh shit, we're exactly in the same place that we were before. Melee will remain the absolute boss, and weapons will remain collecting dust on the shelf at higher levels. Another thing that kind of made me upset, and this has nothing to do with the weapon balance itself, just more context in general, is when Pablo was talking about the Parazon changes. I'm not going to talk about the Parazon changes specifically in this video. I might make a separate video on that if you happen to care. But something within him explaining these things. In this video, he mentioned that players like to go to level 5,000 and something like that. I think 5,000 was the actual number that he mentioned. And then he mentioned something about the Parazon threshold being here and there and somehow correlating with impact, blah, 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 and all those changes. It's good stuff. But there was a bit of an issue involved where creating a Parazon finisher would become less likely the higher level you get. And Pablo realized that that's a bit of an issue because players like to go to level 5,000, and he tried to iron out that little crinkle by mentioning this does not get relevant until level 415 or something, or level 400 something, okay? That's what he said. So, like, players, don't worry, it's only going to be relevant, you're only going to feel that difference at levels of 400. In the same clip, though, he said that people like to go to 5,000, though. And last time I checked, the people... Basically, Warframe seems to have two kinds of people, okay? You have the casuals that play the casual star chart and do 5 minutes of Steel Path and then leave because whatever, you know, or 5 waves of Steel Path and then leave, you know, these kinds of players. And then the much, much, much smaller crowd of players are the ones that actually play high level. And those ones that play actual high level, they don't stop at level 400 or 500 or 4,000 or 6,000. They will attempt to get to level cap, and they will destroy everything at level cap, which is 9,999. So, I don't know if I learned math properly in school, but between level 415 and level 9,999, there's a lot of exponential growth in there, in terms of enemy resistance and shit, in terms of the Parazon thing actually mattering a little. You understand what I mean? DE sometimes doesn't know what they're saying. They're basing things off of low level. Rebecca mentioned high level content in Warframe is everything considered that's slightly, I think that was the actual word that she used, slightly above the regular star chart content. So arbitrations, steel path, sorties. None of those are difficult either. None of those are high level either. High level is supposed to punish a player for not being great. Well, you could be a level 1 mastery rank 1 player that started the game yesterday. You buy Octavia for plat and go into steel path with no mods at all and still kill everything in the game. How, like, what? So anyways, what I guess I wanted to say with this video is, number 1, I told you so. DE is actually nerfing melee, not as little as they claim that they did, which is whatever, same old, same old. But more importantly, guys, try not to be too pissed off about this, because ultimately it changes nothing. It's exactly the same situation as with Riven mods. When DE said we're going to make these purple looking cool crystalline mods in order to give the shitty weapons a fighting chance against the OP weapons, they wound up releasing Rivens for everything, and after a couple of months, the powerful guns became more powerful, and the weaker guns also became more powerful. It changed literally nothing. This situation here is no different. Until DE gets that through their thick skulls, which will never happen, there is effectively nothing going to change. The only thing that's going to be annoying for these new items in the game is that you actually have to invest time and resources to acquire them, and to max them, and to respec all of your weaponry to just kind of match the new, I don't know, whatever builds that you might want to come up with and test. That's the only thing that it's going to do effectively. And I probably will make a video on the best way to do that and prep for it as well, because I do have some ideas that are tried and true, and they might help you guys. But ultimately, try not to be too pissed. This changes nothing. I know it's annoying when DE nerfs things. I know it's really, really frustrating when DE does really stupid shit that has nothing to do with the game that we're all playing and trying to enjoy, that has nothing to do with what us, the consumers, aka the players, actually want in the game and would like to have, and what ideas we have to improve the game. I know it's super frustrating and people are done with their shit. I get that, but try not to get too overexcited positively or negatively for the Sisters of Parvos nonsense. There are some good things in there, but the weapon balance thing is, it's BS and does nothing. So why care? Waste your energy on something else. Hell, come and play Apex Legends with me, but I'm not going to carry your ass. Alright guys, that's all I wanted to say right quick, and just kind of throw my opinions out there. I'll link some videos at the end of this one right now pertaining to actual fixes for guns and some other stuff that I said with the animations being crap and stuff like that. I'll link both of those videos at the end of this one. Until next time, stay healthy and safe, and peace the fuck out.